I am ready. Game 2 for Classic. As long as he opens up aggressively again and soO playing a little bit rusty on some of his control, I'm very much favoring Classic still. He just needs to develop out of that tier 1 technology. He needs to get up to the robo or get up to, like, I guess we can still see those carriers. It's something common right now, but I'd far more rely off him either moving into quick immortal pushes, as you said, the choo-choo train on Daybreak, or just getting some Colossi with disruptors up.
Yeah. I'm very much interested to see what else he can come up with, because Classic's known as a bit of a cheesy player. Oh shit, what just happened? My screen just went black. Am I still there? I'm still there.
You are still there. We'll have to see.
No problem. Don't panic. Don't panic. Alright. Yeah, I'd like to see what else he can do. Go for, I don't know, one base carrier isn't really something. It's very cheesy, but not something that's going to win you the game. But maybe something.
Especially with the current meta, I highly doubt any one base plays, even though you do have some older Heart of the Swarm maps which can foster that style. Definitely Legacy of the Void, you're not going to be going for that. Unless we play another FFA, which then I'd definitely go for that.
Alright, well, here we are on Echo, the latter edition. This is where we saw, well, this is fairly easy to remember. Did Seed win this, or did Gumio win this? We saw Gumio beat Seed back with continued pressure on that third base. And, well, this is a PvZ matchup. The map does lead itself to that sort of play. Anyway, let's get into and introducing these players for you. We have on the top left side of the map, the man sponsored by Kraft's Mac and Cheese. It's Classic. I really want him to choose.
And his opponent in the bottom right-hand corner, the blue Zerg player, up 1-0. It is soO. I do like, from game 1, how calm soO was, though, in trying to get that really big surround on Classic's army near soO's fourth base, where a lot of players might start to where they've lost so much they can't quite take it. But as long as you get a solid position, especially against a tier 1 Protoss army, you can really, really put them down a notch. Classic opens up with a different build than in game 1. He's going to go Gate Fast Expand, while simultaneously getting a nice scout, checking for any of that early pressure play that can happen out of Zerg sometimes.
Yeah. Getting just the one gateway there, get the Nexus immediately. And 2 gases, so fully open to each and every tech option in the Protoss playbook. No, just going to check there whether there's a fast third, but soO doesn't feel like he really wants to deal with that. Just stays with 2 bases.
Yeah, especially after game 1 with the hyper-aggressive opener that Classic chose. soO is being a little bit more wary about taking that third base, and looks like he will basically play it out the same way, though, as he did in game 1, while Classic is going to switch it up and open up with a Stargate.
Stargate in this map? Yeah, I can see that. Irregardless of which map you're playing on, Stargate's always a very powerful tool in the Protoss army. You were saying a little bit about getting flub, the thing where you don't speak, having a little bit of that now. But it does get scouted by soO, so he knows exactly what's going to be coming his way. Early Oracle would be fairly standard.
Yeah, especially with the synergy between the Adepts and the Oracles. Even if soO spots it, I'd still very much favor Classic here, like we saw in game 1. Even though Classic kind of threw it in the later stages of that game, Classic does have quite good Adept and quite good Oracle control. For now, he takes a third a little bit earlier than we saw last game, and then moves out. Last game was a lot of aggression off of 2 bases, but instead he's trying to take a little bit different of a style in this game, probably presuming that soO will also be going for that third base, but instead soO throws out a very early Hydralisk den.
Yeah, gets the Spore Crawlers to defend against that Oracle, and then, yeah, this is a late third. He hasn't even moved out a probe yet, or a drone. As a matter of fact, what shenanigans do you think we're going on here? Is this going to get morphed into a Lurker Den right away?
Well, on 3 gas, I'd be curious if he goes up to a 4th. extra gas. It will be the Hydra push wheels. Nydus network on the way. A very clever play from soO, and soO even has his Overlord in a great position in Classic's main base. The same one that saw the Stargate has an opportunity to throw down a Nydus network, and he's hoping he can get that out before Classic manages to wrangle up and kill all the Overlords.
Which is not at least going to be happen to this one, which he had in the prime position, as it does get.
Classic moves in with his Oracle in the main base of soO, gets a revelation, pulls out, and does spot the Hydralisk den.
Yep. Oh, and there goes the Nydus network down in front of the second, third base gap right there, and soO is just going to brute force this, it would appear. Classic very smartly starts warping in 3 pylons.
I love it.
And has plenty of energy to deal devastating damage with that.
Yep. soO moves out at the front. He does have 4 queens and 8 hydras. Stasis Ward, a little bit of a precarious position. He was not able to put it down closer to where soO would be, and soO finds a beautiful angle with high ground vision from his Overlord to start attacking the gateways. And do remember, these are all the gateways from Classic right here. He's got 3 in the front, 2 more in the back, and when those go down, he does need the ones in the main to finish up. Very smart play. Of course, if you put down a third base as early as this, then you're not going to have any units, and then if you can just put units as powerful as Hydralisks and Queens right on your opponent's front door. Oh, he's gonna get a Nydus into the natural middle line. And I love this. Even if he doesn't put anything into the Nydus in the main base, Classic is still pulled into his main. soO could try to kill Classic's third base right now, but it looks like maybe he did load up, looking for an opportunity, and then soO might be able to move around and attack these pylons. But then he finds the opportunity, pushes on in. Force fields do come out. There's not a lot of DPS with Classic's army. He's barely started to get that, but overall, Classic actually defended that pretty well. More so because soO decided not to pressure Classic's main and instead tried to go for basically the larger attack, the more profitable one in Classic's natural.
Yeah, or if you said, like you said, if that Nydus network gone on there,
more risk, more reward.
Third with everything out of position. So we do have once again very nice. Did the stasis ward of those 2 Zerglings actually wear off in the middle of that attack, and did he actually get those 2 Zerglings out? That's amazing. Just now getting a third base on the part of soO.
Yeah.
soO realizing he's not breaking this Protoss, and decided, you know what, maybe I need to go for just something that can possibly serve as a follow-up in this game.
Yeah, for a few minutes right there, it was looking fantastic for soO. Like, he had an opportunity to snipe the third base. But right now, Classic is starting to get himself in a phenomenal position. All he has to worry about is getting 2 pulled to his natural or his third. But now that he has enough units to split them up, or a Mothership Core to one of the bases, and heck, even the Stasis Wards, he's looking solid. Classic moves out onto Karip, does not have an observer because his robotics facility was off late and invested that time into Immortals, but finally gets the Nydus. soO has to back up, and with his third being so late, you can see it simply in the supply. 150 supply for Classic to the 110 of soO. soO knows the timer is up, but he's not going to go up yet. He's going to still try to make this great concave work, but I just don't think it's going to happen here.
I think he doesn't have a lot of options. If he moves back to his own main base, he's going to have Protoss in that base really soon. So he needs to keep the pressure up on the Classic, keep him in his own base while he sort of magically, gets this. No, not moving in there quite yet.
100 army supply to soO's 75. soO desperately needs to get some damage done. At least he can delay Classic for a while, but Classic is a good enough player. He knows, moves forward, Revelations the main army, and can start getting rid of this creep, which simply allows him to posture a little bit better and find a better angle on soO, so soO does not always know where he is. Classic pushes up. Classic almost is enough to crush soO's army by itself, but he's got to be super careful since there's so many Hydras and they have a beautiful concave. The start of Force Field on the right-hand side, then gets to the Hydras, not going to be able to get the high DPS concave. Classic pushes forward right here, but you got to remember, all these Zealots are stuck behind the Sentries and the Stalkers. Their damage is not being allowed to get out, but it looks like Classic is just going to have so much that he can push on through this, sectioning off half the army.
Very nice with those force field wall, but as you said, he could have used those Zealots a little bit better. Does clean up the southern flank a bit, but the eastern flank, oh no, not with these reinforcements. He's going to have to keep the retreat, and even putting in a hallucinated Archon right there to soak up a couple of those shots. of those Hydralisks. And in the meantime, where did that War Prism go? Well, it's going to catch that army moving around just a little bit earlier today, trying to get it maybe into the main, but instead it's going to choose to try and capture this.
Classic successfully defends soO's 2-base play and is looking like he's going to be able to finish out the game right here. Didn't take that efficient of an engagement a little bit earlier, pushing soO back, but he has managed to push soO back. He's got the Warp Prism out. All of his gates is finished. He is on 7, and he has a dangerously potent army, especially with that 10-15 supply lead, but more army supply lead, but more importantly, the 20 supply lead in total.
Really does like his stalkers. Many other players in this position would be going for heavy adepts, but not Classic. Classic really going for those stalkers. He even has that lovely skin going on there. But at this point, I think
gotta be careful. Don't throw the game.
Nope.
No one. Currently, we do not have an observer with the main army. The observer is farther back, spotting for creep. Lurkers are not engaging quite yet, but they do have a prime angle of Classic. Steps in too far into the 3rd base. Classic's looking to posture into soO's natural. soO moves in. Lurkers moving in very aggressively. Will Classic focus them down? Looks like he doesn't focus them down. We do have one Oracle for Revelation, but instead Classic just bails out of there, blinks back, does expose some Immortals on the back of his army, but he still has simply so much more than soO. Classic falls back. He wants to get the observer with his main army. He's pulling it in. He takes a 4th base. And even though soO's holding on, it's still looking very grim. But remember last game, Classic can throw. Yep. Classic definitely can throw.
I think Classic's suffering a little bit from a lack of killer instinct. He was right here in between that 2nd and 3rd base. That everything of the army of the 3rd base was stuck right there. And he could have just moved up and force-fielded the exit and entrance to that natural base, and that would have been dead.
Oh, soO repositions. Lurker's in a nice position, so soO can't fall back onto them this time. He's a little bit farther out and finally gets the forward Lurkers down. This is exactly what he needed. The Lurkers are not going to be good when his back is up against his other bases. He needs to get some area out in front of his own bases so he can start to pull back if he needs to, and finally start to focus on that heavy DPS. The tech path he forced himself into from earlier on in the game, where he may not necessarily want to be. He may want a little bit more power with this Sling Bane is pretty common, but finally, he's going to get a little better of an engagement. These Lurkers on the left-hand side could go for a surround.
Yeah, Lurkers, great units for sieging, for defending, but one of the problems is if you don't have a great many of them, they do need to be burrowed, and they do take a lot of time to be burrowed. So with those very mobile stalkers, moves in to take a different position and forces his opponent to...
He blinks forward, but his observers, he had observers with that main army. He blinked forward out of the observer range and was unable to focus down those Lurkers. There's a lot of Lurkers, and he cannot afford to make decisions like that, especially when all of his stalkers are very low on health. It's currently 100 army supply to 90. Classic is taking a pretty good engagement. He's got a phenomenal concave. Finally, the Lurkers are here for soO, and will Classic be lured into it? Looks like he's almost going to be lured into it once again, but he's not going to throw game 2 like he did game 1. Plays it safe, snipes the base, falls back, and finally he's getting up to more tier 2 units with disruptors on the way and 3 already out.
Yeah, that upgrade, the 3rd weapons upgrade already there. Where his opponent is still on 2, hasn't even built a hive yet. So, has he even built an infestation pit? No, he hasn't, so there's no chance of getting up there either.
His 3rd base was so late and he played such a cost-heavy composition that he's really starving out right here. He needs to get this 4th base up. He's got a lot of Lurkers to defend it. And by the way, that one, it's funny, that creep right there. I think the pylons went down a little bit earlier, and then soO was a baller and started spreading this creep. But now with the main fight, Lurkers have a nice position. 2 Lurkers are clumped up together. soO's going to have to reposition that, but finally the Lurkers do have a nice position to defend the 4th base. soO can start to solidify his economy and look for the late game tech. But where does he go from here, Marsh?
Well, I think he's actually probably going to just push through. Yeah, Lurkers are great siege units, but with the army Classic has, he doesn't have to move into it. He can just put in those balls of death. And either soO is incredibly on point. Well, don't move in there with your forward. What did I just say?
Nice revelation. Does spot some of the lurkers at the front. Great disruptor shots. 2 disruptor shots earlier do damage, but basically Classic has been able to ride his incredible economic advantage into a heavy amount of disruptors, 6 in total. Classic is able to rotate around from the left-hand side to the right-hand side and find a little bit easier of a position to move into, but I don't know if you want to move into this lurker spot. Great concave disruptors do move out in an exposed position, though. Possibly soO could have jumped on top of that, but finally, we do have a player, unlike Gumiho versus Seed, who's realizing he needs to start rotating left and right to pressure multiple sides until finally soO's caught out of position.
Yep, we still got those lurkers, but they're still shown, though, so you can just move in those balls or walk into there. There's a little bit of floppy control there by Classic. Just don't move into the giant balls of death. That's for both players here. If you're a Protoss player, don't move into the spikes sticking out of the ground, and if you're a Zerg player, move out of the giant glowing balls. Jumping in once again, and is going to get all the defending lurkers on this side, and forces soO to come up, and those
gorgeous
are
disruptor shots. Taking down lurkers. Most of the Hydras are stuck between the hatch and the mineral field, and they're just not going to have the DPS they need to face Classic's army. Classic is at 3-0 attack, and he just needs another warping to reinforce this. We do have a warp prism on the south side of the map, but it's not going to be used, at least for now. Classic simply falls back, regroups to provide a meat shield for these disruptors, and simultaneously that pulls soO in a little bit closer to allow Classic's disruptors to get damage done.
Very nice hold on soO's side, though. Still contesting this, although taking more damage on those lurkers right there. No, the defensive lurkers move out, and that could be... Nope, that's moved out of that shot very nicely there.
Man, Classic really helps himself out in the early game, but in this late game, he's doing well. He is going to win this right here. He's in a phenomenal position, but he keeps letting soO get little leads here and there. GG, well played. Classic takes game 2 and evens it up, but I'm worried for Classic because I feel like he gets a lot of damage done. He gets onto 2-base tech in most other players, or pardon me, he gets onto tier 1 tech on the 3 bases. Most other players would simply crumble to him because he can overwhelm. But soO has the strategy and he has the composition that he can keep holding on, and he kind of almost goes into some engagements like he did in game 1 where he could potentially give the game to soO. But in game 2, he's fixed that, and Classic is on the road, as I said, I think for 4-1ing soO.
Well, I thought that was a very, very good game there, but I don't think he's quite on the road yet to just sweep the next 3 games. soO, I've got a lot of confidence in him, even though I appear to be alone in that when looking at the StarSense score. I'll put that up again for the next game, see if that's changed in any way. But...
I was say I really liked soO's position in the very early game when he went for the nydus network, and especially when he nydused Classic's natural base. Because I thought you nydus Classic's natural base, you let him see a couple of roaches go over there, and then you hit his 3rd base. But he went for big risk, big reward, tried to snipe the natural, and got completely shut down. And from there, it was just downhill. I really do, though. I really, really like Classic's early game. That's where I feel like he's shining, while we have the opposite where soO starts to shine in the later portions of the game. So really, goes to the late game, I definitely like soO's position. In the early game, Classic is dominating with his aggressive styles, and on the flip side of that, his very solid defensive styles.
Yep.